First of all, I want to say good evening to everyone. And it's been a challenging time trying to get this stuff ready up here. Somehow or another, when your kids want to borrow your things, they don't put it all back. And we didn't find that out until we got here because this is when it happens. First of all, I want to thank the Voters League. I want to thank Senator Jordan, Mr. Sims, and all others at the rostrum, and all of you all for coming out to hear the candidates. And I see two of the candidates are here. And I want you all to know that I'm proud of you all, and it's time that young folks start coming up because we're not going to be here always. So it's good to see you all taking an interest in the political environment that we all going to have to live in, and you all are going to have to take this over once we leave. So thank you so much for being a part of this political process. I think we owe them an applause just for being involved. Believe it or not, we have some profound times that are coming before us. There are things that are happening that they have never happened before. Democracy is being challenged in a real way. In a real way. Our federal government is almost something that we don't even recognize. And ladies and gentlemen, I got some news for you. It's going to get worse before it gets any better. The fight now is going to be at the state level. You saw what happened in Texas when those Democrats, they left and went to Chicago. Because somewhere along the line, you're going to have to fight up and down the chain. Also want to recognize our representative. I didn't see you over there. Good to see you. Doggone. But I think some of the things that Senator Jordan said are correct. We're going to have to send somebody to Jackson that can meet that challenge. And when you have a House, Senate, and the governor, all Republicans, and they have their own agenda and not willing to look at anybody else as either their way or the highway, you got to have a voice. You got to have a voice. And I recognize we have been the minority for a long time. And being the minority in this type of situation, sometimes you forget how to fight. But I think we're going to have some fighters to choose from this time. We're going to need them. So I want to introduce to you who I know for a long time is a fighter. I learned that personally. She is a person of honor, integrity, class, and academics. My wife got her first B in law school, and she really didn't know how to handle it. And thank God she was married to me because I was able to let her know how you deal with B's and C's and D's. She graduated summa cum laude, and I graduated, thank you, Lord. And so we made a good match there. But Dr. Curressia Brown is no stranger to us. She's been here. She is a community individual. She's a statewide individual. And she's a national individual. There's nowhere she's been that she has brought any shame or dishonor upon anybody. She can handle the best of them. And she brings that level of expertise to everything she does. To everything she does. And it drives me crazy. But we have 4 crump snatchers: Solomon Brown, Kari, Brandis, Troy Brown Jr., and Kayla. Kayla was accepted into Georgetown. She wants to be a heart surgeon. And thanks to Greenwood community, we're going to produce a heart surgeon coming out of this community. And so I'm just excited and elated. And I just want to thank the Greenwood community for not just focusing on every time you see the wrong, but sometimes we got to talk about the good. And we got a lot of good here in Greenwood. A lot of good in Greenwood. So I don't want to delay the process any longer. Dr. Curressia Brown, would you please come and share with us what your plans, your, what's the word I want? Your platform, yeah. See, I told you. Thank you so much, everybody. Dr. Curressia at Farland Brown.
Good evening, Voters League. I'm honored to stand before you yet again as a candidate for office here in Greenwood, Mississippi. But I would be remiss if I did not recognize our senior statesman, Senator David Jordan, for his work not only here in this community, but his being our ambassador and our voice at the state capitol. We applaud you, Senator Jordan. We appreciate you. And while he and I don't always agree, sometimes we have a little bit of different perspective. The one thing I think is universally true is that no one has fought harder for our community. No one has fought harder for District 24 than Senator Jordan. And it is my honor to stand as one poised and positioned, because if any of you know about track, you know that there's a relay race involved. And to run the relay, you put your strongest runners in certain positions, but at a certain point, you pass the baton. And so what I am sharing, and the reason I'm here again, is to say to Senator Jordan, I'm ready for the baton. And Greenwood, it's time. It's time for us to focus on the issues. Sometimes we get wrapped up in other stuff. If I had to cite one thing that discourages me more about politics in this political arena, is this idea that we have to fall out with each other when we disagree. That's foolishness. That's foolishness. We're unique individuals. God didn't make us the same. If we don't put all of our ideas and perspectives together, then none of us move. It's okay to disagree, as long as we're not disagreeable. But other than that, here I am, you know who I am. And the first question that I had to grapple with in this campaign season was, why run? I've run before. I'm not new to this political arena, and I'm running again. So why are you running, Brown? I'm running because I have something to contribute. I have something to contribute. Individuals, as I've run in previous races, and individuals have made their choice, that's our right. That's one of the things we get to enjoy in these United States. You have a right to choose. Your vote is your vote. Your choice, however, does not change my belief and my competence, capacity, and capability to get the job done. So I don't have to fall out with you, Mr. Hall, if you vote for somebody else. But I can continue to stand and present myself as an individual with something to contribute in Jackson. So Jordan talked about the fight. We've been in the minority for a while in Jackson. Troy alluded to this, and I want to thank you for your introduction, Mr. Brown. Troy alluded to this. And perhaps we've been in the minority so long that we've forgotten how to fight. Perhaps we've forgotten how to fight. We have to understand that because there is a trifecta in Jackson, because the Republicans now control the governor's seat, the Senate, and the House, that means we're going to have to reach across the aisle, around the aisle, through the aisle to get things done. But before we get to that point, there is a lot that we can do. LaFleur, Panola, and Tallahatchie counties, we don't have to wait on the state legislature. When you look over at the Golden Triangle, why is it golden? It's golden because years ago, Lowndes County, Clay County, Oktibbeha County put together a plan that says we're going to be prepared for growth and development. We're going to be prepared for industries when they come. We see their vision becoming a reality today. It's golden for a reason. That was intentional. So I believe that no matter what happens in the state legislature, it's time for those of us in District 4 to begin to work together and identify those things we can do for ourselves. And then we have to know how to fight strategically and systemically when we get to Jackson. I'm sure Senator Jordan has had to have some conversations with people who didn't look like him, think like him, and didn't care about him. But he had to have those conversations to make things happen here in Greenwood. I understand that, and that's my goal. District 24 is in crisis. That's why I continue to run. And aside from that, the fact that I'm not a quitter, but I continue to run because District 24 is in crisis. If you turn on the local news, you see what the big bill, I'm not going to call it, we're going to remain nonpartisan, right? This is a nonpartisan race. But just understand that the things that are happening in Washington, D.C. right now are hitting us, and they're hitting us in a way that's unprecedented. That means that our state legislature has to have its finger on the pulse of what's happening in our communities. It's important to be at the tables where those conversations are being held and to be heard. I'm running because the fight isn't finished. The fight is not finished. And I think if we talk to Representative Osborne, if we talk to Senator Jordan, we'll understand that there's much to be done. If you turn your radio on, you will realize that there's already an agenda in the works for what's supposed to happen in this state. Things that will adversely impact our schools, our hospitals, all of our systems of government. And it's important to stay in the fight for that reason. And finally, politics matters. I've heard some folks say, it's not about the politics. Yes, it is. What is politics? Politics is that process of government that says this is where the resources are going. This is how the resources are going to be allocated. This is how we determine who gets what. So if you're not ready to be involved in politics, don't go to Jackson. Politics matters. Politics is how you impact people. Politics is how you deliver services to the people who deserve those services. Why does District 24 matter to me? Mr. Brown shared to you that we're not quite empty nesters. My mother-in-law has lived with us for 13 years, so our nest isn't quite empty. But the grown folks, those 4 that I gave birth to, they're mounting up on their wings and they're easing on out. But District 24 matters to me for a couple of reasons. One is something that Bishop Desmond Tutu said. He said there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. Why are they falling in? Why is crime at an all-time high? Why are our schools failing some of our children? Why are our hospitals closing? Why don't we have the access to health care we ought to have? I don't have to have a child murdered to understand the impact of the loss of life. We can focus on building streets, but if our sons and daughters are dying on the sidewalks, we got a problem. There's a crisis. And so we have to be able and be willing to find out why are they falling in the stream. Let's go upstream. And upstream for us is not just our local community, not just City Hall, not just the Board of Supervisors, but it's the state legislature. And then there was something Senator Jordan said. That part of that falls down in the dark spot of the wall. But this was September 20th, 2023, during that other race, Senator Jordan. But he said something that stuck with me. And I quote, "In our communities, the cost of living is increasing, but the chance of living is decreasing." The cost of living is increasing, but the chance of living is decreasing. Those same things we talked about in 2023 are still issues today. That's why I'm running. When the last census was conducted, in the 1990 census, the population in, I think this one is just for LaFleur County, was around 41,545. Based on the 2020 census, we were at 27,557. We're losing population. And if those people we're losing were homeowners or property owners, we're losing tax revenue. Okay? The median income, $43,347, that was in 1990. In the 2020 census, $30,182. Now, some of you all might be the big money earners, but understand that population is decreasing. The median income is decreasing. The cost of living is increasing, but the chance of living is decreasing. So what are the issues in District 24? The issues in LaFleur County, Tallahatchie County, Panola County, in fact, throughout the Mississippi Delta, and I would dare say in various places across the state, are similar. Crime. Crime is an issue. How do we deal with that? How do we address that? The first thing we do is recognize that the most important function, the first and foremost function of government is the protection of its citizens. I shared with you before, I'm an empty nester, but that doesn't stop the fear that I have when my 26-year-old says, hey, I'm going to hang out with friends tonight. Or I want to go to a party downtown. He ought to be able to do that, right? He's grown. But it doesn't keep me from being afraid. He can be at the right place at the right time and still lose his life. Okay? So there's no more wrong place, wrong time. You can be where you're supposed to be. If you all remember, a few years back, there were a couple of young people murdered. They were hanging out with family on the porch after a funeral. Shouldn't they have been there? Did that mean they have to put their lives on the line? Absolutely not. We have to be concerned about that. How does being in the legislature impact that? We have to start looking at the laws relative to gun control. That's one. I'm licensed to carry. I enjoy that right. Okay? But I don't carry an AR-15. All right? I don't have to have an assault rifle. I don't carry that. It's not necessary. So why are they on our streets? What does the law say about the capacity or ability of people to carry those weapons? We have to look at the laws that allow. Yes, we have to talk to the folks in our community about what they do. We can't kill each other. We have to stop that. We have to address crime where it happens. We have to get the people who are committing crimes need to be off the streets. But I submit to you it's bigger than that. We got to look at multiple approaches here. Why are they committing the crimes? That's the other piece. That's the flip side of that we have to address. Because now we're getting into poverty, economic development, opportunities. What opportunities are there? Our children's first experience with law enforcement should be when they're handcuffed in the back of a police car. So we advocate, I'm a strong supporter of community policing, getting to know your community, making sure the police are there, your children know them and respect them, and vice versa. Those programs have to be in place, but at the same time, we have to be accountable when it comes to addressing crime and those who are committing the crimes. Senator Jordan introduced years ago a character education bill. And I got to thinking about that thing because we talked at that point to young people about their character, who they are, and respect for each other. Maybe we need to revisit that and deal with a bill that says we have to educate our children at some point about conflict management. How do you resolve conflict? Let me show you the other side of that coin. Coins usually have two sides. Let me give you another side. If our children grow up in homes where they're witnesses to domestic violence, then they think that the only way to solve a conflict is with what? Is with violence. If you talk to law enforcement, they will tell you that many of the incidences of crime, the murders, the assaults, are stemming from domestic violence. So when you open that can that says crime, when you open that topic, there are so many areas we can use to address that and so many approaches. Some begin with us, some begin with our state legislature. Healthcare. We have all been impacted by healthcare. With the current cuts, with what's coming down from our federal government, we know that we have hospitals. Congressman Thompson said they're on life support. Okay? Our hospital is on life support. But now not only is it the hospitals, it's the nursing homes that rely on Medicaid for payments. Some of you have been directly impacted by this. So we have to advocate for the expansion of Medicaid. We have to continue that fight. We have to continue. If you have not been impacted, just wait. Just because you can go to Jackson for the specialist doesn't mean your neighbor can. Healthcare access, economic development. I mentioned the Golden Triangle and what they're doing. I also mentioned that there are things that we can do in District 4 as District 4 to address opportunities. I'm a small business owner. I was so excited when I got my minority business certification. I thought that would be it. All I had to do was put my name out there and I would get grants and opportunities. Not so. Not so. There are entrepreneurs in this room, small business owners. So what does the legislature have to do with that, Brown? As legislators, as your next senator, then I can go to these agencies and say, okay, what is it? Why are these funds not flowing? Why is it in LaFleur County that when you say minority business and minority grants, the folks who get them look like everybody but us? How does that work? These are the questions that have to be asked. These are the questions that have to be asked. Voting rights. We would all agree the right to vote is a critical one. What is our state government? What is the legislature saying? What's the plan for voting? Not only denying those who are facing or who have served sentences for certain crimes, it's not that they just serve their sentence and come back and they get to vote. There is a process. And then the legislature it has to be approved. How are we making sure that those who are entitled to vote can vote? We don't have early voting, true early voting in Mississippi. We have absentee voting that you can do at an earlier point. But there is a fight as well for early voting. I can keep moving. Veterans. So many veterans, more than 18,000 veterans, they talk about the fact that have been displaced because of their services they've lost because of this bill that has come to us from the federal government, from the big bill. And I'll say the big ugly bill. You call it what you want to. But when it gets to us, it looks like a big ugly bill. The veterans put their lives on the line for us. And now their lives are on the line because services for them are being cut. Are we asking the right questions? Are we moving and making sure that we're fighting those fights that remain on the table? PERS, how many state employees? I'm retired, praise the Lord. How many state employees are in the room? Okay. 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6? Well, I can share with you there are many more in our community. And right now they're wondering if those PERS benefits will be there for them. How do we shore up PERS? There are ways, and they're talking about the sustainability. How do you sustain it? There are ways that we can do that and resources available, but our legislatures have to fight the fight. They have to say it. This is what we're going to do. You've heard reference to the rainy day fund. If we are not in rainy days right now, I don't know what you call rainy days. That fund could be used to go in and shore up the PERS system. Because it's not fair for people to commit their lives and their work to our state, and then you retire and those resources are not there. I'm moving. Relationships. Let me back up to healthcare. I also heard a statistic the other day. I was in a meeting and heard a statistic. Over the past 10 years, more than 3,000 infants died before reaching the age of 1. Maternal and infant mortality is higher in the Black and brown community than any other community in this state. Our babies are dying. Our mothers are dying. That goes back to the healthcare crisis. That goes back to the critical importance of making sure we have access to healthcare. And then relationships. Relationships matter. Relationships count. You've got to work with people. You have to build relationships. Can one person make a difference? You can if you know how to talk to another one, and then you talk to another one and another one. It's about building alliances. I'm going back to what Senator Jordan said. It's not about getting down there and spinning your head or changing your mind or deciding, I want to hold on to my seat, so I better do this. I better tuck my tail and go in the corner because I want them to like me. Now, you're fighting for a community. And when you're fighting for the community, you stand You take a stand, and you go to the meetings and you put yourself at the tables where things are happening and where those resources are being allocated. I don't know if this is going to, I'm going to click it and see. I was looking at economic development across the state of Mississippi. I was supposed to click this, it was supposed to jump up to a map. It's not going to do it, I think, because of the internet connection. But the whole point was to look at how in the state of Mississippi development is happening. I went to school in Rusk College, in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Marshall County is getting millions of dollars. Tupelo, the other side of 55, all around the state, there are different pockets of industries. If you go to the Mississippi Economics Council page, you can click on a map and it will show you where all of these industry sectors are. I clicked on something close to us, and I got Dollar General. I clicked on and I got prisons. But you click on aerospace and all these, and what's the response? The response is, well, we need workforce development. We need a skilled workforce. Well, that means we need skilled individuals, which takes us back to the plight of education. Right now, they're already getting prepared for the agenda for this coming legislative session. And one of the big things they're talking about is something called education freedom. Education freedom. So what does that look like? It came out of that argument about school choice. As a parent, I believe it's your right. If I don't give my children anything else, I might not be able to leave them $1 million. In fact, that's kind of slim. They probably won't get $1 million. But the one thing that I can do for them as a parent is to make sure they have the very best education possible. The very best education possible. There's much debate about whether public dollars ought to follow the students. Should private schools have access to public dollars? I think the question is bigger than that. The question is, are we going to fail our children? Because even with that, and as much as we fight, I am a public school advocate. I have 4 children. 3 of them are public school graduates. 2 from Amanda Elton, 1 from the Mississippi School of Arts. And then Kayla graduated from Pillow Academy. Because at that point, there was one decision. I'll debate a lot of stuff. I'll debate religion with you. I'll debate anything you want to debate. But Troy and I understood that when it comes to our children, we get one shot at making sure that they have the very best education, because that's the foundation for everything they do. And while you talk about choice, that conversation has to be had within the context of all of our children. It's not just important to me what happens to mine. I can pack me and mine up and go about my business. But that's not what I'm committed to doing. It's about all of our children. We talk about failing schools. Let's talk about the schools we failed. We have to fully fund public education or public schools. We have to pay teachers an appropriate salary. An appropriate salary, not adequate. Adequate is one of those little funny words you can use. You know, if you drown and it's adequate that you get a little air. But it pulled me all the way out of the water. Now, don't adequately rescue me. Pull me all the way out of the water. Do what's appropriate. We have to look at what is best for our children. I know I've talked a lot. I've tried to cover as much as I could in the time allotted. But my message to you is simply this. Brown, you talked about some of the same things. Those are some of the same slides you used 2 years ago. Yeah? That's another reason I'm still running. Because those are still problems. If we solve them, then I can sit down. Then Sister Loretta can sit down. Then my brother over here, Brother Parker can sit down. We can all sit down and rest if the problems are solved. But they're not. There's still crises in this community. And again, I'm offering myself, Curressia and Fallen Brain, as the candidate to continue the work that Senator Jordan has begun. And I'm going to wrap up with this. I started with this, and I got to go back and wrap up. Another thing, and Senator Jordan, you might not know, but I've listened over the years. Micah 6, I believe it's 6 through 8. Senator Jordan reminds us all the time about the importance of being just, of doing justly, and loving mercy, and walking humbly before our God. That's not just an adherence to rituals. Michael was just talking about following the rituals that were laid out. But he was talking about defending the least, the lost, the left out, the left behind. That's doing justice. And we have to continue that work. We have to continue with integrity. And I'm going to ask everybody in this room to stand with me and let us applaud Senator Jordan for bringing us to this point. Because if it were not for him, if it were not for 30 plus years in the Senate and all of those years he spent on the city council, where would we be? So Senator Jordan, we applaud you, we thank you, and we assure you that you will not be embarrassed. And just as Senator Jordan fought, this is one commitment I'll make. Somebody said, don't make promises you can't keep. They're commemorating, the Emmett Till commemoration is happening right now. They're partnering with Mississippi Valley and some other organizations. And there will be events held at the statue that, because of Senator Jordan's stance as the only one here in this region, stands right here in Greenwood. But I think, and I am willing to introduce a statute, a bill in the legislature that says we need a statute of Senator David Jordan, so that generations to come will remember how we got here and will understand the imperative of moving on up a little further. So thank you so much to the Voters League. I appreciate you. I also Mr. Sims. Who am I supposed to? And I think questions, Senator Jordan?
Yes, ma'am. Carry on.
Are there questions? I know I've tried to cover a lot, but
You're talking about education earlier?
Yes.
And also, likely the government agenda in the fall is consolidating those school districts. Governor Reed said that we will consolidate 20 to 50 school districts.
Right.
Your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are that has to be studied, and we have to be careful, because I was listening today, and according to the report I was listening to, the proposition on the table is that there should be one district per county. I believe I heard, is that the same thing that you heard? That there should be one district per county? Is that that's right.
Go ahead.
So I think that we have to look at, one, the impact it's going to have on our children and our schools. We have to look at what that will mean in terms of resources. Because if you're saying we're consolidating, cutting in one area or saving on the administrative side, but will the needs of the students be met? And will the individuals running those districts be individuals who are committed to the success of all of our children? See, so when you use consolidation, that whole idea, the premise is, rather than having 3 or 4, and this is consolidation in any area. Let's say we're talking about consolidating churches. Then you put a group together because they're doing the same thing, moving in the same direction, so you don't have so many administrators. It's not as top-heavy. But that's not always the most effective way to serve individuals. And so I would say we have to look at where that consolidation will take place, who would be running those districts, and what impact it will have on the schools in that district. Are we leaving out schools? Are we carving out areas to eliminate certain schools? Or are we saying it's a better use of resources to bring these schools together and have them under one administration? So because I just heard that conversation today, Mr. Hall, I have to answer that way and you continue to study that. But I think there are pluses, there are pros and cons of consolidation. It depends on what that plan is for. But I do need to know we need to keep our eyes open, especially if it's coming on this agenda.
Let me say, thank you, Dr. Brown. Let me say your question.
Right now, the money follows the child. Private school will have access to money that should go to public school. Those of you who are up in age, you should have remembered before they built the many else of what Brooklyn School looked like up there in Money, Mississippi. It was raining in it. What the one looked like in Ada Beer. It was raining in it. So you got a president now want to cut back or roll things back. And in the legislature there are 62 members, 16 African Americans, 2 Caucasians that are Democrats. And the odds of getting something passed is very difficult unless you're going to go there and do what they want you to do. And I have a lot of young blacks that came in, African American, Negro, color folk, whatever you want to call them. I can call them worse names than that. Which stands for anything. They voted alone just to get along. That's what I'm afraid of. A lot of folks go along and get along. When you're getting along, they're taking you back where you just tried to come from. They don't care where we water this land with our tears and lay rich with our bones. We need somebody to go step out front, not go along together. That's all I've ever said about it. Yes, I made it, but they fired me. They shot in the house. Who the hell was in there now? Well, some of you who was here didn't do a thing to help me. And when you come by my room, you look the other way because you didn't want to be associated with it. But that was the greater power of watching the process. So that's the kind of person I'm talking. I had to sue everybody. Sue them. Change the form of government. Boycott it. Had to do all of that. Yes, I had college and master's degree in chemistry, and I had all of that. But what about the folks who send me somewhere? What about them? And you can't talk your way through that. You got to fight. You got to be able to press on. That's why I want you to see this image of what they did for a 14-year-old boy. Look at this body. But a lot of folks just want to talk and make it sound good. And when they go down there, we had somebody come in, they voted right along. I said, I can't use the language like you. But, so why you? Well, you know what, just try to get along with everybody. You ain't going to get along with everybody. You got to, you're on a mission. If you are willing, if we had to sue this city to change the form of city government, it would be just like it was before it happened. So I'm talking about, and how are you going to make things happen? You have to step out front. Anybody can philosophize. I want somebody to take my seat who's going to fight. Not to go along to get along. They don't get along with us, everybody. But you have to stand up for the people who sent you there. And that's what I did, and I paid for it. Yes, I won the lawsuits and a lot of stuff, but I had to fight first. One man stopped me who I whipped and called me for court, but you couldn't have the court because black folks go to jury. You don't have no court against David Jordan. These are local people. They had to dismiss it. Because I stood up for them when I saw what they did to this woman. That's why I want you to be aware of the dues that we have paid. And 16 against, it is 62. If you stand up they not going to like it. But I didn't care. Because the people that sent me there needed help bad. Yeah, I got folks here. I got boys of full knowledge. I got a grandson who's a chemist. And got a son who's a chemist. Yeah, I was in medicine, but I have to fuss at them just like I'm talking now. So what I'm saying, we got problems. We got problems. If there's no FEMA, there's no MEMA. When you got a president want to cut funds, the state ain't got no money. So I want somebody down there who will challenge the system. Not to go along to get along. I could have done that. But it ain't. That doesn't help the people who send me there to make it just a little better for them. So I'm looking for a fighter. I don't care who they are. A fighter who will say what needs to be said for the people, regardless of what the circumstance.
Let me say this. As a community, what do you expect? See, it boils down to what you expect. And your ability and your willingness to hold any elected official accountable. We know these things are happening. We see growth all around us. Okay? If you're not willing to ask the question, so you can fight all day. But if you are not concerned, it doesn't matter. If you're, we wonder why, and I'm going back to voting. In the last midterm election across the state of Mississippi, I think it was about 37%, don't quote down the numbers, less than 40% of the people turn out to vote. Folks are registered all over the place. Registration is not a problem. Everybody's registering people to vote. People are not voting. Why? Because there is a sense of frustration. They don't believe anything is going to happen. They don't believe the vote counts. We have to, as citizens, you too have an obligation in this. You have an obligation to hold the people you elect accountable. If you can drive, how many of you have been from Greenwood to Memphis? And you go by way of Grenada. You go to Grenada and go up. And we saw that Milwaukee Tools building coming years ago. That's not a surprise. But what were we doing about it? What were we doing? Right now, is our industrial park, is it shovel ready? If an industry came and said, we're ready to come to Greenwood, are we positioned? And that's why I started out saying there are some things that we can do at home. Yes, there are some things that we rely on the legislature to do, but there are some things that we can do right now. The Golden Triangle wasn't an accident. They were working on this years ago, 60s and the early 70s, planning for 2025. That's why when industry and businesses come into the state and they're looking for somewhere to build, they can go over there. They're ready. They can open the doors and say, come on in. But when we start asking, it's workforce. You got to have a trained workforce. You got to have the infrastructure. So what are you demanding? What are you asking for? What is it that you want? Anybody can go to Jackson and come back and write resolutions when you die. Okay, I can call Jackson and get a resolution if you die. But what is it you have to have? There has to be a sense or a spirit of expectation. Because then that's the fuel. When anyone goes, whoever goes to that state capitol. So the joint talked about people capitulating or going along to get along. That's one thing. That's the people do that anyway. I'm saying, and what my position is, if you know we've been the minority, and you know you're the minority, and you know how difficult it is, then that means you need to be building networks. You need to be talking to some folks. If you're not the majority, you might not be able to pass a bill, but you can get in the way of some. You can get in the way of some, but we have to start thinking and planning I'm looking at the state, and I'm bringing it right back over. I'm easing back over here to Central Georgia. I'm looking at the United States of America. A few years ago, we were all excited. The Kamala Harris campaign. Everybody was excited on the bandwagon. Thousands of people getting on Zoom calls, talking and planning. We heard the rumblings about Project 2025. That didn't start in 2025 or 2024. That plan was in the works a long time. I raised the question at a forum, what's our plan? If Kamala wins, okay, but if she doesn't, what's our plan? Where was the plan? Where is our plan before County? What are we sitting there? What are we getting ready for? You have to build those relationships. I'm not saying sell out. We've seen how that looks too. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying sell our communities out. What I'm saying is you're going to have to identify some folks, because at some point, even those in the majority not going to always have their way. But there's got to be enough of a force, enough people working together to say, okay, listen, we need to negotiate. You're going to have to, and I'm sure somebody's had to rely on some of those votes from Democrats to get through what they want. Okay? They had to be. And so I don't care who you are or where you are.
Yeah, I just want to say that I know this back in the day when the work
Similar to what we are going through now. But when people like this, turning through legal services, started to have somebody that they need to sue somebody, they came to my school, got beat. I didn't say, I didn't make no excuses, but I got fired for doing it. Then I sued again when I got to Jackson. Then I sued the state of Mississippi. That's what it took to break it. It's not a 16 down there now. You got 52 members. You ain't gonna get nothing passed unless you go along with what they want. And most of them don't want what you need. And so what I did, I sued the state. And when I got down there with that 16 or 18, somebody respected what I had done, and then a Republican gave it over $200,000 to put that image up there of Emmett Till. A Republican gave it, but it was out of respect. I had some people when they talked about the POW, prisoner of war, had more privileges than my brother did, and he fought in World War II. And POW, prisoner of war, was sitting up in a restaurant out there driving the sun, eating, and the woman served my brother from the back door. Said, we don't serve niggas. That's the kind of stuff that made me mad. When I told that, some people started crying because I was mad. And then I brought a couple of my friends up here in the NOLA to have a hearing, review a wall, and Ed Black and all of them had this committee trying to get the flag changed. And the Klan was there. And when I got up to speak, the Klan went to holler watermelon. Watermelon. And then they laughed. And then the next year he came to Greenwood and wanted to speak. I went out and got me everybody from David Jordan, father on the father, we filled themselves up at the courthouse. I told Ricky Bain, ain't no Klan going to speak. I don't know how this stuff. And the Klan and Grand Dragon came up that close to me, I shoved them out of my face. I mean, some of you could have been welcome. I'm talking about standing up for what is right, not just philosophize. That's easy. But there's 16 of you there, I hope that, and some of the new don't tell how it goes. But you got to battle when they're trying to roll things back on people of color. You see it every day like I see it. So you got to have somebody there to fight that. Not go along to get along. You got to step out front. And we got to be sure that we send somebody down there to do that. It's not a philosophy. You're outnumbered. And you're going to have to fight. And fight means suing folks. Or doing whatever you can to let people know or standing up. I'm not saying, Doc, you won't do that, but you got to do it. That's the only way you're going to get a change.
Any more questions?
I'm finished.
Are there any other questions?
I got it. President Trump is sending troops to D.C. hospital in Chicago. What's your position on that? Federal troops going to ways of crime and violence. Maybe Jack, maybe read your thoughts.
Given the state of crime in our communities, I say send them to Greenwood, Greenville, Clarksville, Cleveland, wherever the crime is. Now, that sounds radical. I didn't say I supported what Trump is doing. I said we have to stop the violence. Our communities have to mean as much to us as other folks' communities mean to them. I look right here in Greenwood, and what does that have to do with the state legislature? When we start talking about resources for our police department, enforcement, many people know who committed the crimes. We know. I'm amazed when I look at us sending 200 National Guardsmen somewhere else when we've got hotspots in our communities. So what is it about? What Trump is doing, we see that. That's authority. That's a federal takeover. He said, he wants to be the king. All right? Now, you can say that was a joke. You can say it was whatever it was. We see what's happening in D.C. because he can do that in terms of the federal jurisdiction. But if you watch what he's doing, even in some of these other communities, he understands that he can't go into Chicago and put guardsmen all over the city. They're there because he can't do it. The Constitution won't let him do it. In D.C., it's different. D.C. is not a state. So it's under the authority of the federal government. The reason I said send them wherever they need to go, I mentioned this earlier, we have to look at a carrot and a stick approach to crime. First of all, the stick. Those who committed crimes need to be locked up. Okay? Period. It needs to be off the street. Those who are killing people, those who are breaking into folks' homes, they need to be locked up. You need to stop it. On the flip side of that is, when we look at what's causing that criminal activity, that's why I mentioned addressing poverty, addressing the fact, opportunities to earn wages, living wages, opportunities for our young people to be involved. But where does that start? We can't say, it's okay, we'll just let the killing go, let it go on, and then we'll fix it. We can talk about character education, but we have to, at the same time, stop the bleeding right now. And I look at the numbers. There's been a lot of conversation about the numbers going down or up. If there are 10 murders in Greenwood, LaFleur County, that might not sound like a lot to you. But if one of those is your mother, your father, your son, or your daughter, one is too many. And we have to all begin to think that way. We have to address crime. It doesn't make sense when you say, they were talking about the cameras, and then there was an outcry. Why are the cameras in certain communities? Where are the crimes being committed? If you're addressing crime, we have to be deliberate about addressing crime. In terms of our state government, we have to look at the resources that are provided to our law enforcement and those agencies so that they can combat it. We need more police officers. If you talk to the sheriff department, he'll let the sheriff of LaFleur County and the chief when he was here, they will tell you they need more officers so that they can patrol. Brown flipped the coin. Our children should be introduced to police in the back of the police car, handcuffed. So they need to be in the schools. If we look at our schools, if we had police officers or resource officers in our schools, our children would then be able to look at them and say, okay, this is somebody I can trust. They will understand that relationship. If there are more officers who could walk the streets, learn the community can learn them, then perhaps we can build that level of trust so that people will say something. So that they will say something. But we have to do what's necessary to address crime by any means necessary. That's my position.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Let's give Dr. Brown a round of applause.
Thank you. We can do better than that. Give another round. And we will not meet next week. We will meet a week from next